Hey biology class, it's Miss Butler again. This week we're doing an introduction to the plant kingdom. So plants are multicellular photosynthetic eukaryotes, which means they all have a nucleus in their cells. Plants have a cell wall around their membrane, which is made of cellulose. Cellulose is an organic compound that makes plants really strong. Their stems, their roots, everything is strong in a plant. Plants likely evolved from green algae, scientists think, over 400 million years ago. Don't forget, this is your photosynthesis chemical reaction. We've studied this already. But plants take in CO2 and water, and with some sunlight, they can make carbohydrates or simple sugars, and they give off oxygen. Just to review again, this is the plant cell. Remember, plant cells have really large vacuoles for all the water plants have to store. And what's unique about plants that animal cells don't have is that cell wall, that extra tough outer membrane that goes around the cell membrane that provides structure and support. Plants first probably live near water, and over long periods of time, they have adapted to live on land. So to live on land, they needed to overcome a lot of obstacles. They had to have a way of getting water and nutrients, and so they developed roots and other structures called xylem and phloem. Xylem helps plants move water, and phloem helps plants move nutrients and food. They also have a substance called a cuticle, which is like a waxy protective layer on leaves that helps prevent losing water. Plants had to figure out how to reproduce, and so next week we'll talk about flowers and pollen and seeds. They have roots to help them withstand wind and to grow against gravity. So let's start with leaves when we're studying plant structures. Leaves are broad and flat, so that they have a lot of surface area to trap light energy to do photosynthesis. Without leaves, plants can't do photosynthesis. They're supported and they sprout from the stems. Every leaf is connected to the plant stem by this structure called a petiole. A petiole is where the leaf attaches to the stem. And underneath that waxy cuticle and a layer called an epidermis is a leaf layer called the palisade mesophyll. This is the area where most of the photosynthesis occurs. Here's a picture of the palisade mesophyll. So here's the top of a leaf with that waxy cuticle that prevents dehydration and water loss. There's a layer called the upper epidermis, and then the palisade. This is where tightly packed plant cells are. Lots of chloroplasts, so there's a lot of photosynthesis going on here. Under the palisade mesophyll is the spongy mesophyll. There's a lot of air under here, not quite as closely packed cells. And then you have these structures called xylem and phloem that help move water and minerals and food up and around the plant. So leaves also have these things called stomata, or if you're talking about one of them, a stoma, and it's an opening in the leaf that lets air and water in and out. If you looked at leaves under a microscope, you would see tiny openings. They look like little mouths, and they can open and close to let water in or keep water from coming out if the plant's trying to save its water. Stomata open and close due to the action of guard cells. So this is the stoma, and the guard cells are around the openings to help it open and close. Transpiration is how water evaporates in plants, and that happens at these stomata, at these openings. Transpiration drives water movement up the plants. So the water comes up from the roots and out through the stoma, or stomata plural, and that's called transpiration. Plants also have roots, and you know roots. They anchor the plant to the soil, and they also absorb water and nutrients. Some roots are modified for food storage. If you like sweet potatoes or yams or potatoes, that's a modified root or a tuber that you can eat for nutrition. Roots can be two types: a taproot, which is like this dandelion where there's just one main root, that's called a taproot, or fibrous roots like in grass. Grass have fibrous roots, which is a bunch of lots of small roots. The stem of a plant, if the plant is a vascular plant, the stem contains vascular tissue. And there's two types of vascular tissue you're going to study: the xylem and the phloem. The xylem transports water and minerals from the roots up. So if you look, the arrow only goes one direction for the xylem, up from the roots all the way to the leaves. The phloem is a type of vascular tissue that can move food or sugars anywhere the plant needs it. So phloem moves food. That's how I remember it. So that's why the arrows go in two different directions. Anywhere the plant needs food, the phloem vessels can move it. So one more time, xylem and phloem are two types of vascular tissue. The xylem moves the water in one direction, up from the roots and out through the leaves. The phloem can move food anywhere the plant needs it. So the phloem can move food and the xylem moves water and minerals. We're going to finish this week with two types of plants. Plants can be vascular, which is the first type. That means they have vascular tissue, like the xylem and the phloem we just talked about. These plants can grow really tall because of this vascular tissue. An example is pear trees, grass, rose bushes. These are all vascular plants. Non-vascular plants, they have no xylem or phloem. They have no vascular tissue. These plants have to grow near a water source, and they stay pretty short because they can't move water up long distances without vascular tissue. So think about your short mosses and your short liverworts. These plants, these non-vascular plants, they don't have true roots. They don't have true leaves because they're really low to the ground. They're really short. So here are your non-vascular plants.